Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With this Season 3 Reloaded update, we saw a lot of individual weapon buffs and nerfs, including a buff to the Type 11 LMG, which has sort of been lingering in the background for quite some time. Really ever since the Bren was like that super overpowered meta weapon, people have been saying, hey, maybe the Type 11 is going to be that next in line, right? Well, after the Season 3 Reloaded update and the Type 11 buff, this thing is now ridiculously competitive and honestly meta for long range. So today we're going over the stats, breaking down just how good the Type 11 actually is versus the other top meta weapons, and of course the best loadout for it as well. As we go through it all, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, each and every single day I got you covered with everything going on in COD, so feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. So first things first, let's start here on True Game Data. As always, shout out to Tony for putting in the work getting these updates put onto the site so we can actually see what exactly changed in a more physical way rather than just reading 11% increase to damage range and everything in the patch notes, right? So big shout out to him. Of course, we're looking at 300 HP because this is now universal between Caldera and Rebirth, so everything we're talking about today applies to both maps. You'll notice that the Type 11 is probably going to be more of a Caldera weapon than a Rebirth weapon, and of course we're looking at combination shots just for the most accurate and realistic TTK. So on the graph we're going to look at here, we got the Type 11 with the MX silencer and the shrouded barrel, which actually has no damage drop off, which is incredibly good. It's like the Bren pre-nerf in a way. The Vargo, one of the top Cold War rifles in the game, Task Force Grew, of course. Automaton, another top Vanguard rifle with MX silencer and the 600mm barrel, and of course the best gun in the game right now, the STG with MX silencer, 760, and the Gorenko 50, which is the ideal go-to meta build. And when we look at this graph, you'll notice our orange line here is what we're focusing on, and yes, through the first 38 meters, the Type 11, an LMG mind you, is not particularly as good as the Vargo, the Automaton, the STG. Now the difference here is important to note. We're looking at a 0.792 TTK through 38 meters versus the Type 11, which is just above a 0.850 TTK. So about a tenth of a second when it comes down to it. Could you feel that in game? Maybe in some cases, but that's an incredibly small gap in all reality, right? But that said, yeah, through the first 38 meters, it's not necessarily the best, but then it's a lot more competitive with the Vargo. After the first 46 meters, it's now better than the STG. And after the first 48 meters, it's significantly better than the Automaton. The Automaton is used so much, but it's really not all that great over range for what it's worth. And you can see our orange line here, the Type 11, past essentially 38 to 48 meters becomes the top TTK out of this specific list here. Of course, it's basically right there with the Vargo. Would you be able to feel that in game? Not necessarily, but what comes down to a TTK that's that close is what gun are you going to land more shots with. And if we go ahead and we look at the recoil patterns here, we got the Vargo in pink, we got the Type 11 in orange. You can clearly see the Type 11's pattern here is about as easy as it gets. The STG's maybe a tad bit easier because it's essentially just straight vertical. Type 11 has a slight jump to the left, then it's basically vertical. The Vargo, though, a lot more horizontal movement, which is not as easily predictable and controllable over long range. Automaton, straight vertical, but has a lot of vertical movement. So while it is so close here, you are probably going to land, most players I should say, are going to land more shots with the Type 11 just because it's simply easier to use. And again, no damage drop off like we see with these other weapons where it drops off severely at certain points. This is through and through just a steady decrease, which is incredibly good over range. Now, you might be arguing, well, what about those first 38 meters or so? Folks, this is an LMG. You're not using that in this area. You might have it out to, try and pre-ADS a choke point or something in this sort of engagement, but primarily you're gonna have an Owen gun. You're gonna have an MP40 or something for a lot of this area. The Type 11, you're gonna be using 38 meters and beyond for those medium and long range engagements. So while it is the slowest in this first area, I don't feel like that's a huge drawback necessarily because being an LMG, you're not building it to be good in this specific area. Also, real quick, post-edit Zach here. Hey, hi, how you doing yet again? You'll notice at the start of the video, I did mention that I feel like the Type 11 is more of a Caldera weapon than it is a Rebirth weapon, even though the TTK stats here are now the same between both maps. I just want to reiterate that because this is a little bit slower than these other options in those first 40 or so meters, that's why I wouldn't really recommend it for rebirth specifically, just because you'll oftentimes find yourself in those engagements more than on Caldera, where obviously there's a lot more range involved, just to clarify. So that being said, how exactly do you want to build the Type 11 to make it this top tier meta weapon that can easily compete with these other really strong guns over range? Well, obviously, as we saw on the graph, we're going for MX silencer. We're also going for the shrouded barrel, better control, better velocity. Damage does not diminish over range. That's the most important aspect of this all. If you're not using this barrel, this is not a top tier meta weapon. I also feel like the 90 round drums here are the best choice, just because 45, while you're getting slightly better fire rate, better control and whatnot, it's only 45, which is borderline with the 300 health now, just when it comes to damage per mag. 30 is not enough in either case, so 90 to me definitely was the way to go. As for the remainder of the build for the optic, it's a lot of preference here. I personally like the 3 to 6 times on here. 2.5 times just didn't seem like it had the necessary zoom for some of those longer range fights in this case, so 3 to 6 really worked well, at least in my own opinion. For the stock, this is very important. A lot of players will probably go for padded initially and say, because that works on so many other Vanguard guns, it's the go-to because it has better control during sustained fire. I tried this in game. I tested this out. The con of initial firing recoil, it's significant. You notice with your first few shots, there's a big jump up. It's not worth it. In my opinion, weighted is absolutely the way to go. You also get better control during sustained fire, but you just lose out some movement speed, which is really not all that important on a build like this. Of course, I'm sticking with hand stop per usual. I want to maximize that control where I can. Obviously, like I said earlier, we got the 90 round mag, so that's all good to go. Going for lengthened, of course, for the better velocity over range. Also want to stick with polymer in this case, just for even better control while we're firing, especially when you get to 70, 80, 90 meters and beyond. The better control you have, the more likely you are going to be landing more consistent shots, which is going to give you the best TTK possible. Not gonna lie, all the perks kind of suck. I feel like, honestly, sleight of hand is probably your go-to here. With a 90 round mag, obviously your reload is not super convenient, so having a slightly faster ADS definitely can be useful. These other options though, fleet with better movement speed, that's not important for an LMG. Pressure, reload, quickness while injured, you might as well just use sleight of hand because it's always. Brace, initial firing recoil. I guess if you wanted to try and pair this with maybe the padded stock, you could do it, but then you're just wasting attachments in my opinion. Driller is not worth it. Steady is mediocre at best, so sleight of hand, the lesser of all evils, if you will, in this case. Then perk 2, of course, we're going for fully loaded per usual as well. But yeah, this is a super easy gun to use. It's very basic. The control is nice and easy, so all skill levels, all platforms can use this. And clearly, it has the stats to back up the talk here. It can compete with the STG, the Vargo, these other top tier ranged meta weapons, so I would highly suggest trying it out. That said, that is going to wrap things up for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with everything going on in COD. So feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.